Carry you home. Bye. Writing is therapy. Chapter 9-12. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka run through the twisting halls of the Invisible Hand, guided by diagrams and the Force. They often run into droids, which are quickly and stealthy dispatched. The pair soon runs through a set of blast doors, which open on a balcony that overlooks the bridge. General Grievous' hulking form paces back and forth, his cloak, which, in Obi-Wan's opinion, looks quite ridiculous, fluttering about. Closer to the expansive windows is the Chancellor, cuffed to a large chair sitting upon a slightly raised circular platform. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan look at each other. As if they are of one mind, they flip over the railing of the balcony and land on the main floor, unlit sabers in hand. Hello there. The hulking cyborg turns towards them, sickly yellow eyes burning with vengeance. General Kenobi, he growls. And you brought Skywalker's pet. Grievous' arms splinter off from 2 to 4, stolen lightsabers alight in each hand. Ahsoka snarls, holding her sabers in a reverse grip and crouching as she readies herself for the imminent battle. General Grievous. If you would kindly allow us to leave with the Chancellor, we'll be out of your way, Obi-Wan retorts as he ignites his lightsaber and shifts into Sorsu's opening stance. Of course, I know how stubborn you can be, so I guess we'll have to do this the hard way. They had planned this out before, as they were running through the labyrinthine halls of the ship. Grievous will be expecting you to fight him, Ahsoka had said. He won't be expecting me. And so they had proceeded with her plan. Obi-Wan would free the Chancellor, while Ahsoka would take on Grievous. Though he would never admit it, he feared for her. Grievous was quite a formidable opponent and had killed many talented Jedi. Obi-Wan refuses to let Ahsoka be one of them. Still, he has a job to do, a duty to the Jedi Order, to the Republic, to the Chancellor. To Anakin. As Ahsoka battles against the ruthless cyborg, he runs and dives behind a towering control console, his back against the cylindrical structure as he stealthily shuffles around and brings himself closer to the Chancellor. The bridge is illuminated by flashes of explosions and laser bolts as Gar and Confederate forces alike strive for victory. Whoever wins this battle may very well win the war. Crouching low, he runs over to the Chancellor. Master Kenobi. The Chancellor exclaims upon seeing him relieved. Chancellor Palpatine, Obi-Wan quietly replies, examining the surrounding area for some sort of switch or button. After finding none, he turns to the Chancellor. I need you to remain still while I cut you free from these restraints. At that, the man looks visibly nervous but acquiesces nonetheless. Obi-Wan focuses on the restraints around the man's wrists, immersing himself in the Force and allowing it to guide his blade. His slices strike true, freeing Palpatine. The man rises from the chair, rubbing his wrists. Palpatine nods at Obi-Wan and thanks. After inclining his head in turn, Obi-Wan turns to escort the Chancellor when the Force alerts him of approaching danger. Brandishing his lightsaber, he quickly deflects an incoming blaster bolt shot by a super battle droid who is joined by 7 others. Snarling, he leaps into action, his saber nothing but a blue and white blur as he demolishes the droids one after the other. He is fluid and fierce, harnessing the frenzied storm that howls within. A final sweeping slice cuts the last droid in half. However, Obi-Wan barely has time to catch his breath before the ship creaks dangerously and starts to shake. He looks out the viewport to see flames licking the surface of the ship, the space around them slowly becoming lighter as they enter Coruscant's atmosphere. Alarms begin to blare and red lights start to flash. He glances at Ahsoka, who is still engaged in a fierce battle with General Grievous, and then at the Chancellor, who meets his eyes with a worried expression on his face. He watches as the Togruta catapults herself backward, reorienting herself just in time to block General Grievous' lightsabers with her own. The ship begins to tilt as the creaks and groans ominously increase in volume. Obi-Wan steadies himself and grips the Chancellor's forearm to keep him steady and close by, though the man does not seem to be struggling as much as Obi-Wan thought he would. Ahsoka delivers a swift kick to the Confederate general's chest, sending the cyborg staggering back as she catches him off guard. She crouches in wait, limbs coiled like those of a predator, her sabers at the ready. She seems to feel Obi-Wan's gaze, for she looks at him, a determined and resolute expression on her face. Obi-Wan, go. We can take care of this. Ahsoka, but... Go. He begins to usher the Chancellor into the hallway, but stops and turns. May the Force be with you, Ahsoka. And with you, Obi-Wan. It feels like a final farewell, yet Obi-Wan leaves and doesn't look back. Ahsoka's fought Grievous before. At the time, she had been a Padawan for less than a standard year, not yet jaded by the horrors of wars, still fresh and optimistic. She had barely made it out of there alive the first time. She has grown tremendously since then, has been scarred both physically and emotionally. She is not that same snippy Padawan that walked off of the ship on Christoph's all that time ago. However, now is not the time for retrospection, she has a cyborg to defeat. Ahsoka meets Grievous strike for strike, her swift acrobatics useful in avoiding his extra 2 limbs. She weaves between his slashes and strikes, leaping upward and separating her opponent from 2 of his arms. Grievous roars in pain and fury, slamming her to the ground with one of his clawed feet and knocking her breathless. The ship continues to break apart around them. The cyborg bears down on her with his 2 remaining lightsabers as she barely manages to keep him at bay. The dipper snippet in Ahsoka's belt pouch seems to weigh 1,000 pounds, the burden compounded by a legacy to live up to and expectations to meet. Her lightsabers are brought closer to her body as her strength begins to wane. But no, she can't fight against her ghosts. She must focus on the battle before her. The snippet and its symbols of good fortune, the legacy she carries, are all there to support her, even when Anakin himself is not. He taught her strength, taught her loyalty and kindness and perseverance. Anakin taught her how to rise above, how to be a good Jedi even when he was not. Emboldened and resolute, she shoves Grievous back with a push of her sabers, and some help from the Force. She may feel alone, but Anakin was, is, and always will be there, fighting beside her. Ahsoka rises to her feet. Obi-Wan races down the hallways with the Chancellor at his heels, praying to the Force that he's not leading them astray. Fortunately, they reach the hangar with very little trouble, something that doesn't entirely sit right with him. There should have been more resistance to their departure, more droid and clone bodies along their path. But as the ship trembles violently, Obi-Wan dismisses his concerns. There's no time to dwell on such matters. Around them, clone troopers quickly load onto the gunships, some dragging their wounded behind them. Obi-Wan locates a ship big enough for 2 and ushers Palpatine inside before hopping in. The model is semi-familiar to him. He's sure Anakin has blabbed about it at some point or another. He figures out the general function surprisingly fast and starts the launch sequence. Channeling his Padawan's recklessness in the cockpit, he sends the ship rocketing out of the hangar, just in time to see the invisible hand break in half behind them. He hopes Ahsoka is able to make it out in time. For now, he focuses on the task at hand, dodging debris and burning ships, shooting at enemy fighters, using the Force to guide his path. Land on my private landing pad, the Chancellor says, staring intently at the glittering cityscape from his seat in the co-pilot's chair. Obi-Wan complies with the Chancellor's requests, guiding the ship towards the semi-secluded landing pad and moving aside so the Chancellor could input the proper codes. His landing isn't perfect, but at least the ship is in one piece. The 2 quickly unstrap and race out of the ship and towards the blast doors, which lead to a private lift that takes one directly to the Chancellor's office. As he follows Palpatine inside, the ground starts to shake. Obi-Wan turns around to watch as the invisible hand crashes on Coruscant's surface, exploding in a bright, fiery ball of light and with a cacophony that overtakes all else. He quickly shields himself with his arm and crouches down as the shockwave blasts through. Debris rains down throughout the city, bringing with it destruction and death. Lives disappear like tiny pinpricks of light as they are unceremoniously snuffed out. He feels something in the Force shift. The dust settles. All is quiet. He doesn't think Ahsoka made it out. Chapter 10. Obi-Wan can't move. His gaze is frozen on the smoking wreck not too far in the distance. He tries to focus on the fact that General Grievous is barring some miraculous circumstances dead, that the leading figures within the CIS are gone. He does not think about the other Sith Lord, the Master, that may or may not be out there. He does not think about Ahsoka, does not think about the recovery crews discovering her mangled body. He does not think about the rites and rituals that would need to be performed far too many and far too soon. He does not think about the too small body shrouded atop a stone pallet. A hand on his shoulder startles him out of his reverie. You seem anxious, Master Kenobi. I apologize, Chancellor, but I worry for what has happened to our allies on Invisible Hand. Such as Padawan to know. Yes. I am sure she will be all right, the Chancellor reassures him, squeezing his shoulder with gnarled and bony fingers. She is extremely capable. Besides, everything is as the Force wills it, yes. Why yes, Obi-Wan replies, slightly taken aback. Though the Chancellor obviously knew of the Force's existence, the Jedi had never heard him invoke it in such a manner. Palpatine seems satisfied with his answer, for he removes his hand. Come, he says, I'd like to go to my office. Obi-Wan has no choice but to follow. They are soon situated in the Chancellor's office, the man himself perched in his chair, while Obi-Wan, too unsettled to sit down, stands behind one of the chairs on the other side of the desk. Obi-Wan knows it is naive to assume that the threat has passed, but he is just tired. Tired of the war, of the fighting and the bloodshed and the death. Tired of trying and having his efforts nonetheless add up to nothing. He's tired of being powerless. Come sit down, Master Kenobi, relax. The Chancellor says. I can have my staff bring you a drink? Would you like tea? Some Coralian ale. I'm perfectly all right, thank you. Are you sure? With all due respect, Master Jedi, you seem ill at ease. Obi-Wan sighs. He doesn't exactly like the Chancellor, nor does he wish to confide in him, but he figures some sort of answer will appease the man. I am simply tired. This war has been unpredictable. Costly. I look forward to retiring my military rank. Palpatine nods at that, seemingly in agreement. Forgive me for overstepping, but how have you been? I know Anakin's loss has not been easy to endure. Obi-Wan reminds himself that the Chancellor is also mourning Anakin's death. There's a sort of kinship to be found between them, he presumes. They were, after all, both mentors in Anakin's life. I have been moving forward as best I can. It's about treasuring the time you had with him, I suppose. Wise words. I can't imagine what it must have been like to watch that happen. Obi-Wan finds himself overwhelmed by images of that day, that moment, once again engulfed by the fear, the pain, the anguish, reaching out only to meet empty air. He digs his nails into the palm of his hand, and the pain brings him back to the present. There was nothing I could do, he finally says, unable to meet the Chancellor's eyes. The man hums in response. Tell me, he prompts. Have you ever truly been in control? Obi-Wan stops and thinks. His entire life becoming a Padawan, receiving a Padawan, and then losing him autonomy has been just out of his grasp. All because he was too slow, too late, too weak. He hesitates. Oh, no need to pretend with me, Master Kenobi, Palpatine says, a hint of derision tangled in his voice as he rises from his chair and walks around the desk to stand before Obi-Wan. I've seen it ever since the death of your Padawan. The fear, the anger, I can give you the control you lack but so desperately yearn for. No more death, no more war, only peace. I never said I don't need in. I can help you become stronger, but you must embrace a larger view of the Force. He looks up at Palpatine, startled. With all due respect, Chancellor, what would you know about the ways of the Force? I had a mentor who taught me the ways of the Force. Only through me can you achieve a power greater than any Jedi. He extends a claw-like hand. Obi-Wan stares as the realization hits him in the face. How had they missed this? How had they allowed this to happen? How had he allowed this to happen? You're a Sith. Very good, Master Jedi, Palpatine the Sith Lord sneers, his air of superiority growing ever more oppressive. The shadows seem to grow larger, darker, ready to devour. But you may call me Darth Sidious. Fury roars within Obi-Wan like a ravenous inferno as all the pieces fall into place. This whole war, all the death and suffering, it's all because of you. He ignites his lightsaber and extends it towards Sidious, trying to ignore the way his hand is shaking. You killed Anakin. He trusted you, called you his friend. Did his life or the billions of others mean nothing to you? Unfazed by the weapon pointed at his chest, Sidious sighs. The lives lost were an unfortunate, but necessary cost, he replies. As for Anakin, he was a dear friend, and I was not responsible for his demise. That was the doing of Count Dooku, whom you defeated rather handily, might I add. Count Dooku was your apprentice, Obi-Wan retorts. Was being the operative term? He glances down at the saber, and then up at the individual wielding it. What are you going to do, Master Kenobi? I can feel the fury and hate swelling within you. I am defenseless. Strike me down. Give in to your feelings. Don't you want to? Obi-Wan stops. Thinks. This isn't the Jedi way. What is he doing? He extinguishes his saber and backs away. The Chancellor, no, the Sith Master, still has to be dealt with, but who would believe him in his current state even after seeing how his claim rings true in the Force? Who else is available to get the job done? It must be him. It can only be him. This is how he regains control. With a furious battle cry, Obi-Wan ignites his lightsaber and charges. A crimson blade meets his own. Sidious grins, pushing back with unexpected strength and forcing Obi-Wan to rely on his sorcerer proficiency. His blade work is simple yet efficient, though his feelings the feelings, he has tried and failed to release into the Force, tried and failed to acknowledge and accept, threatened to bubble and boil over, ruining any chance of being precise. Though he is a master of the form, he has all but abandoned the sorcerer philosophy. Obi-Wan quickly ducks under a swipe that leaves a burnt and smoking trail in the wall behind him, and puts some space between himself and Sidious, catching his breath and regaining his bearings. The Sith Lord is so fast. He seamlessly transitions from Atar to Duo to Demso in the blink of an eye, never faltering or slowing down. He seems to fly as he charges towards Obi-Wan, always making the first move, the first strike. Obi-Wan just barely keeps up but scores a lucky hit, a shallow cut across the man's chest. Nowhere near fatal, but enough to buy him some time. Why would the Sith Lord want him? Obi-Wan muses as he attempts to recover from the barrage of attacks Sidious had unleashed. He isn't special. Not like Anakin was. But then he realizes the Sith Lord isn't trying to recruit him because of his force powers or dueling prowess. He is simply the next best option, the backup. Sidious is only looking for a pawn and attack dog. Force, the Chancellor had been attempting to make Anakin his apprentice. Would Anakin have fallen? Would he have betrayed the Jedi, betrayed him? Of course Anakin would have, Obi-Wan concludes, for if all had gone as planned, Obi-Wan would have betrayed him first. Furthermore, the Chancellor has been the Knight's friend ever since he first arrived at the temple, so small and timid, but ever so bright. Though Anakin's presence had dimmed as he grew, especially because of the war, Obi-Wan misses the warmth, misses basking in the rays of his Padawan's presence. But he can't dwell on mistakes or lost chances, for the dark side whirls towards him, a tightly coiled vortex of power. Obi-Wan rolls out of the way, barely avoiding a lethal swing of the Sith saber. Their quick flurries of blows and riposts and slashes feel akin to a cat teasing a mouse prior to snapping the prey up in its jaws. He barely feels the glancing hits, the skin-deep wounds nothing compared to the constant and all-encompassing pain throbbing within his chest. Obi-Wan is so tired. He is tired of running, of dodging, of all but delaying what seems inevitable. He does not want to simply survive, he wants to put an end to Darth Sidious, to the Sith, to the war and the fighting and the bloodshed and the death. Obi-Wan sinks into the Force like he has done countless times before, immersing himself in its ever-flowing currents. But then, he does something he has never done before. Instead of allowing the Force to carry him wherever it so desired, he grabs the currents with both hands and pulls. Not even the Force will dictate his life. Not when all it has led to is devastation. Obi-Wan is once again the storm, each clash and parry of his saber akin to lightning streaking across a stormy sky as it charges towards the ground. He finally pushes back and succeeds, gaining ground until he has the Sith Lord cornered. He sees the glimmer of fear in the Chancellor's eyes and can't help but smile. The power to make even a Sith Lord afraid is not one to be underestimated. He feels the heady rush that flows through him, a soothing wave that warms his chilled bones and fills the gaping void in his soul. For the first time since Anakin's death, the pain does not chain him down. Instead, he almost feels free. Yes. Sidious laughs. Give in to your anger. Your hate. And Obi-Wan almost listens, almost steps off the ledge into the black abyss below, but a flash of yellow in the window to his right stops him. It definitely isn't a trick of the light this time. He fights the rising horror that attempts to claw its way out of his throat. He has strayed far, far from his teachings, his sacred ways, the traditions he has practiced and held dear for his entire life. Obi-Wan has strayed from the light. This isn't right. This isn't the way to succeed. He cannot be the thunderbolt as it strikes the ground, nor the scar it leaves behind, but the way it lights up the dark and featureless world to unveil an assortment of hidden wonders, a flash of beautiful enlightenment. He is not the insatiable dark, but the compassionate light. And so he drags himself back. I will never join you, nor will I ever be like you, Obi-Wan declares, firm and resolute. I am Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and my allegiance is to the light. Enraged, Sidious unleashes a torrent of lightning from his fingertips with an exclamation of fury. Obi-Wan squints at the sudden onslaught as he deflects the lightning with his saber, gritting his teeth as some stray sparks meet their intended target. As the Sith Lord is engulfed by his own lightning, his face twists and distorts, becoming wrinkled and pasty white as his yellow eyes seem to glow. Obi-Wan finds this monstrous visage much more fitting. You need me. The Sith Lord yells amidst the buzz and crackle of potent energy. Only I caw. Obi-Wan swiftly beheads him before he can finish. The Chancellor's office is in ruins. Chairs are overturned and splintered apart, while various items, some of them broken, are scattered across the floor. Scorch marks and what are almost certainly lightsaber burns decorate the floor and walls. But most astonishing of all is the familiar dark-clothed corpse that lies at the feet of none other than Obi-Wan Kenobi. His lightsaber is still ignited in his hand as he remains completely still other than the jerk of his shoulders with each shallow, rattling breath. The Force feels strange, it's as if everything is suddenly overly saturated, yet there's still a stagnant eeriness to it. Dark energy seems to ooze out of the room itself, its inhabitants are drenched in it. Obi-Wan. She calls hesitantly. He straightens fully with a jolt and turns to face her. She freezes and her stomach seems to fall through the floor because Obi-Wan's eyes are gold. His eyes widen as he sees her. They are once again a familiar gray blue, the change so sudden that she could have forgotten it ever occurred if not for how the image was forever burned into her mind. Ahsoka, he chokes out. Then Obi-Wan crumples to the floor. Chapter 11. Obi-Wan wakes up to a high pitch ringing in his ears. He feels as if he is floating, yet he is vaguely aware that his body rests on a plush bed in, actually, he doesn't know where. Where is he? He attempts to lift his head to discern where he has ended up, is he even alive? But blacks out as soon as he begins to try. Obi-Wan, a voice calls out from the void. He reaches out and finds nothing but air. Obi-Wan has no choice but to wander aimlessly through the darkness. An indeterminate amount of time passes before color pierces the abyss, and he finds himself in the temple. He can't quite pinpoint his exact location, but knows that it is somehow familiar. The space is empty except for the familiar figure that stands facing away from him. The second time he wakes up, he knows he is alive, for death would not be this painful. Hopefully. It smells sterile. And of Bacta. So he's in the healing halls. Obi-Wan fights the beckoning embrace of sleep and opens his eyes. He is greeted by a swath of white walls, various machines, and one sleeping Togruta curled up in a chair, wrapped in a burgundy blanket that very nearly brings tears to his eyes. He remembers giving that blanket to Anakin many, many years ago as a life day gift. Though he will never admit it, it always made him smile to see his Padawan use it, and it seems the sight of his grand Padawan doing the same has a similar effect. The Togruta stirs, wearily opening her eyes. She spots him looking at her and is suddenly wide awake. Master Kenobi. She exclaims, relieved. You're awake. It seems so, Ahsoka. I am glad to see that you are all right. Why yeah, she looks at him, expression wary and unsure. He glances around at the various pieces of equipment surrounding his bed, paying no mind to the medroid that whirs around, checking the data and adjusting when necessary. How long have I been out? You were in a Bacta tank for a day and have been out for about 2.5, Ahsoka replies. Though Master Che thought you'd be out for longer. Oh, she knows perfectly well that I always wake up earlier than she expects, or wants me to, Obi-Wan says wryly, the remark eliciting a weak smile from his companion. Her grin fades as she meets his eyes and just as quickly, looks away. Ahsoka. The Force told me where to find you, she abruptly begins. So I listened. But what? You after, the Togruta hesitates, still refusing to meet his eyes. Your eyes, she finally murmurs. They were yellow. Oh Force. Ahsoka, he exhales. I didn't. Master, you use the dark side. The horror in her voice easily overpowers the physical pain he feels. She's right. Obi-Wan suddenly feels disgusting and impure, his presence in the temple a file stain on the pristine walls. How can Ahsoka even tolerate him? He doesn't belong here. Obi-Wan begins to untangle himself from the blankets and cords but is stopped by a hand lightly pushing against his chest. Stop, Ahsoka pleads. You need your rest. She helps him lay back down and resettles into her chair. Master Yoda always said that once you fall to the dark side you can't come back. But your eyes are blue now. And you don't feel dark. Still, I was so scared I would lose you, too. She grabs his hand, her movements almost desperate. You can't leave, okay? Oh, okay. Her words remain at the forefront of his consciousness, their implications yet to be fully processed, but his mind is cloudy and his eyes are heavy. He just told her he wouldn't leave, he can't. It's all right, Master. You need to rest. Obi-Wan vaguely registers Ahsoka covering him with a burgundy blanket before sleep finally claims him once more. Anakin. Obi-Wan calls out, his voice meek and unsure. Anakin turns around but says nothing, simply smiles serenely and reaches out, taking Obi-Wan's left hand within his own. He maneuvers the Jedi Master's hand so that it is held out palm up. In Anakin's right hand is his lightsaber, which he reverently places in Obi-Wan's palm. Delicately, oh so delicately, his Padawan closes Obi-Wan's fingers around the hilt. Obi-Wan looks up at Anakin, an unspoken question upon his face. And still, his normally chatty Padawan, the boy he knows as well as, if not better than, he knows himself, remains silent. Rex can hardly believe everything that has happened. The war ending, the chips that were apparently in their heads, but are now being removed en masse, the Chancellor being a carking Sith Lord just like Dooku was. The Chancellor was a traitor, a double-crosser. All this time. And no one knew. But that means his brothers, millions of them, fought and bled and died in war that meant nothing. That means they lived for nothing. Rex. He looks up to see Cody standing in the open doorway of his room, armored up except for his helmet, which he held under his arm. Cody, he greets, his gaze not moving from his helmet. He thinks of the security his helmet affords him, the history it possesses. In all likelihood, he will never wear it into battle again. He's just a regular citizen now, after all. Rex isn't sure how to feel about that. He isn't sure how to feel about any of this. What are his brothers supposed to do now? What is he supposed to do now? His purpose in life has always been serving the Republic. It was what he was bred and trained to do, and he liked doing it. He just feels so lost. Rixica. Rex jolts up and glares at Cody, who stands slightly off to his right, arms crossed, an expression far too smug. You know I hate it when you call me that. Cody shrugs and sits next to Rex on the edge of his bed. What's on your mind? Rex sighs, tracing the Azure J guys on his helmet. He earned them in the beginning of the war and has worn them with pride through many battles. They were a sign of bravery, a sign that has earned the respect of many. A lot of things, I guess, he replies distractedly. Such as the Chancellor. The Republic. The end of the war. Rex. Cody's tone conveys slight annoyance and the command to, in Cody's words, stop being so stubborn and just spit it out. Rex knows he can't really get himself out of this one. It's just for the first time in my life, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. We've spent our whole lives training to fight for the Republic or actually fighting for it. I've known no other way. Now that the war is over, I feel lost. I mean, war was far from pretty, but at least I had a purpose. Though he refuses to look up at Cody, he does not flinch when the commander rests a hand on his shoulder. Rex, Cody begins, the familiarity of his voice comforting. I know for a fact that the Jedi never saw us as simple cannon fodder. They won't abandon us. They'll help. Yeah, but... I know, Rex, Cody soothes. But I know Commander Tenno will be around. So will my general. So will the many, many other brothers who are probably feeling the same way. Including me. Rex looks up in surprise. Really? The tiniest smirk crosses Cody's face. Rex. I'm not invincible. I know that. You just seem so calm about this. Because I've been talking with my brothers and not staying locked up in my room like a certain captain I know. Rex glares at the commander, who looks back with an impassive face, though mirth glitters in his eyes. Cody shakes his head, his expression far more serious. You may feel like it, Rex, but you're not alone. Rex leans into his brother's shoulder, resisting the urge to curl up and bury his face in Cody's chest like he used to do when they were still cadets on Kamino. We used to live and die for the Republic. I don't know, I'm not sure, he trails off, unsure of how to finish his question. Cody seems to get the point but looks to be at a loss, a rare sight. The pair falls into a comfortable, contemplative silence. Then his Orivod speaks, sounding slightly hesitant but determined. I guess that means we get to decide what we live for now. Obi-Wan jolts as the temple bursts into flames. Even as the building crumbles around them, they remain in place, unharmed by the surrounding devastation. The temple falls away, leaving the pair standing in the familiar abyss, except it is not empty, not vacant and gaping. Instead, countless lights of varying sizes and colors shine all around them, a breathtaking view of the abundant light and life the galaxy holds, even amongst the seemingly impenetrable darkness. Obi-Wan is grateful to have only spent 3 more days in the halls of healing before being released. After assuring Ahsoka that yes, he would be alright, he slowly made his way to his current location. He's simultaneously glad yet apprehensive to be alone, but the one person he wishes was here, with him is the reason why he must confront this challenge. Force, it hasn't even been a standard month since Anakin died, and yet so much has happened in the wake of it. A plot to kidnap assassinate the Chancellor was foiled, and now that Palpatine's true identity has been revealed, Obi-Wan wishes they would have allowed said schemes to succeed, though he wonders what might have occurred as a result. The Separatist leadership was killed, the Sith Lord was revealed and subsequently eliminated, Obi-Wan very nearly fell. And that last one, despite Ahsoka's claims that he didn't feel dark, he can still sense it within him, clawing at his insides, screaming in pain and fury. How long has that poison been festering within him? How long will it take to rid himself of it? Can he do such a thing, or will he have to live with it for the rest of his life? Does that mean he's no longer a Jedi? He pushes his worries away. Questions to ponder at another point. For now, he has an important though daunting task ahead of him. He takes a deep breath and tries to find it within himself to relish the ability to be grateful. In. Out. He keys in the code with miraculously steady hands. The door opens with a quiet whoosh and Obi-Wan is hit with such a strong feeling of Anakin that he just about postpones his mission. But no, he has to do this, or he never will. It must be him. It can only be him. This is how he regains control. One step at a time. Alone, Obi-Wan takes the first step. And another. And another. Soon, he is surrounded by Anakin, by his living space and things and habits that used to exasperate Obi-Wan to no end but that he would now do anything to deal with, just one more time. The memories and feelings engulf him like a sandstorm as the Force howls in despair. He is nearly brought to his knees but manages to stagger over to the couch before collapsing into the cushions. The table before him is covered with tools and droid parts Obi-Wan could never hope to identify, as well as some of Ahsoka's classwork. Obi-Wan unclips Anakin's lightsaber from his belt and delicately places it upon a table filled with projects, whose repose was only ever meant to be temporary. He considers the strewn about items, picking up a hydra spanner and two parts that he thinks might go together. Maybe if he can finish what Anakin started, he'll feel better. Maybe if he can fix something, the pieces inside him won't feel so broken. He fits the components together and uses the spanner to weld them together. Upon completion, he considers his satisfaction disproportionate to the relative simplicity of the task. He gently places the newly bonded part on the table. And then it breaks. And that inability to fix anything, the overwhelming worthlessness that comes with feeling as if you destroy everything you touch, is what truly shatters him. Harsh, soul-wrenching sobs fill the empty, lifeless quarters as Obi-Wan, bent double with the force of his tears, mourns the brother who never knew how much he was truly loved. This lightsaber is my life, Anakin says, voice echoing off of non-existent walls. And I entrust it to you one last time. Ahsoka finds Obi-Wan curled up on the couch, an indeterminate amount of time later, his eyes red-rimmed but dry. I wish you would have told me, she states, the sullen acceptance evident in her tone. Told you what? He asks, voice flat and scratchy. He feels raw, like an exposed wound. That you were struggling so much. He looks up at her. The undisguised sadness on Ahsoka's face hurts to see. She sits down next to him on the couch. I don't think I realized I was struggling so much. He shifts his body to face her. I guess I thought that pretending my pain didn't exist would eventually make it go away. I didn't want to acknowledge it because doing so would have made Anakin's death all the more real. But instead of going away, it just festered. Obi-Wan feels his eyes burn. It seems he hasn't exhausted his tears. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. He exhales shakily. You don't have to apologize, Ahsoka. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, too. For everything. I forgive you. The truth is, I forgave you a long time ago. He doesn't quite know how to respond to that but settles on a quiet thank you. After an eternity of shared silence, Ahsoka suddenly declares, Padme gave this to me. She reaches into one of the pouches on her belt and holds her palm out, revealing the object in question. Obi-Wan recognizes it as the snippet Padme had been wearing during the funeral. I didn't know Anakin had been a slave, she murmurs, running her thumb over the carved symbols. Padme told me. I kinda get why he didn't, but... Anakin didn't like to talk about his time on Tatooine. He had a hard enough time adapting to temple life when he first arrived here and largely desired to leave his personal trauma behind. He probably didn't want you to think any less of him for it. I wouldn't have. I know. And so did he? Obi-Wan looks at the table before them and grabs Anakin's lightsaber. He knows this weapon as well as his own saber. It was with him when he defeated Sidious, though he never used it. It was almost as if Anakin was there, fighting beside him like always. He glances over at Ahsoka, who doesn't even appear to be surprised that it is in his possession. You know, when Anakin first became a Padawan, he always said that he was going to become a Jedi and free all the slaves. What happened? As time went on, he almost seemed to lose any hope that such a dream might ever occur. Oh. Ahsoka looks thoughtful. Well, maybe. Obi-Wan tilts his in question, encouraging her to continue. However, she waves her hands as if clearing away dust. We'll talk about it later. I wanted to ask you, she hesitates, looking down. Wanted to ask me what, my dear? Obi-Wan prompts. She lifts her gaze and looks slightly nervous. Well, the council told me that I could choose my new master, but you already know that, because you're on the council and so I was wondering if I could be your Padawan. She looks up at him, blue eyes sparkling with hope even as she radiates anxiety. Obi-Wan finds himself stunned. He knows she didn't want him to leave, but even after everything, even after all that he has done, Ahsoka wants to stay. Ahsoka, I would be honored. She breathes out a sigh of what seems to be relief, her worries unfounded. Clasping her hands together, palm over fist, she bows her head in gratitude. Thank you, Master. Obi-Wan reciprocates the gesture. You're welcome, my Padawan. Their eyes meet as they lift their heads and smile at each other, weak but sure, and the world is a little less broken. Anakin steps back. Even amongst the twinkling lights, he seems to glow, but not with the fiery, scorching fierceness that seems to normally characterize his Force presence. Instead, it is soft and soothing, like a warm embrace from a lifelong friend, from a Padawan or a best friend or a brother. Obi-Wan realizes that this is Anakin at his best, at his fullest potential, a sight the living world will never be able to witness. This is Anakin, a collection of broken pieces compiled into a beautiful mosaic, something far more radiant than the separate parts ever were. Every day without her Ani is hard in its own right, some more so than others. Sure, there were plenty of days during the war when she feared for his safety, for his life, but she had always thought that he would be okay. No longer can she reassure herself with weak platitudes and semi-effective reminders of the many friends and allies he has, paying no mind, of course, to his enemies, whose numbers are double that of his comrades. Anakin is dead, and there's nothing Padme can tell herself to change that. There are some days where getting out of bed is nearly impossible and others where she just wants to curl up into a ball and cry. But she cannot do any of those things, for she has a duty to the Republic, to the citizens of Naboo and other systems that are counting on her to represent them and their needs. Especially now that the war is over. The war itself left many citizens, both Republic and Confederate, bereft of vital resources, such as food, viable liquids to drink, and a home, not to mention the many innocents killed in the crossfire, the many family members lost to a war whose purpose became less and less clear every day. The individuals that fell through cracks went unnoticed during the chaos of war, but now that the smoke has cleared, it has become more and more evident how the Senate has failed its duty to serve the common folk. She sighs. The Senate has failed in many, many ways, one of which being how they allowed a Sith Lord to gain such power. In her usual fashion, Padme ensured that she was an integral part of these recovery and restoration efforts, and has consequently found herself swamped with documents to be read, and signed and laws to be drafted and, hopefully, passed. With her colleague and close friend Bail Organa serving as Chancellor, gaining approval for her programs will be much easier. A soft knock on her door pulls her from the many data pads surrounding her. Enter. She shouts, eyes still glued to her work. And then she realizes that not everyone is Anakin. Most individuals do not know the passcode to access her apartment. She rises from her desk with a forlorn sigh and walks over to the door. Upon opening it, she is greeted by a surprising sight, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Jedi Master he looks terrible, even more so than the last time she saw him. His face is pale and gaunt, and there are deep bags under his eyes. However, there is a spark of purpose back in his eyes, something she has not seen since. Despite how uncharacteristically ragged his outward appearance is, Obi-Wan is finally starting to look like himself again. Hello, Senna Padme, he greets and he sounds tired. Obi-Wan, she says in turn, moving aside to invite him in. The Jedi enters her apartment, his movements differ than usual, but accompanied by a determined energy that reminds her so much of Anakin's single-mindedness when completing a specific task. She wonders who learned it from the other? Obi-Wan gestures to the couch, one eyebrow raised in question, and Padme nods. He glides over to the couch, the one he had inhabited the last time was here, the day everything changed, and sits down. Padme perches on the other end of the sofa, attentive but slightly wary. She'll never forget what he told her when he had visited almost a month ago, never forget the deception that had been foiled, the life that had been snuffed out. Padme will never forget, but after much contemplation and introspection, she thinks she can find it within herself to forgive. As you know, the Chancellor was a Sith Lord, and Obi-Wan stops and looks down. He seems to collect himself before once again meeting her gaze. Well, I feel that you deserve to know what happened. I also need your help with something, if you're willing. Padme scoots toward Obi-Wan, taking his hand within her own. Tell me. As they talk and plan, a friendship is forged anew. And after escorting Obi-Wan out, both of them invigorated with a sense of purpose, Padme takes a moment. Just a moment to stop. Look up. Breathe. She smiles, feeling lighter than she had in a while. She breathes the coarse skinty air and looks up at the sky. It's cloudless and blue, the same blue as Anakin's eyes once were. Anakin may have called her his angel, but he is the one now watching over her. Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight teacher, husband, best friend, brother, child of the Force, bows his head reverently, a warm smile on his face. Everything was planned out. Everyone knew their part, their role. And all were in agreement. Out of the many ways in which they could have honored Anakin, this one was by far the best. Obi-Wan nervously fiddles with his robes, while Padme scans her notes for what is probably the 20th time since she had arrived. Ahsoka is pestering Rex for stories about the men. After some time, the young Nautolan initiate that has been guarding the doors calls out, "They're ready for you." The group quickly gathers before the entrance, and the doors to the council chambers open, the mid-morning sun filtering in to create a warm and inviting glow. Everyone ready? Padme asks, head held high. Ready as I'll ever be, Rex replies, nervously shifting his weight. Ahsoka chirps out a simple yup. Obi-Wan merely nods, eyes focused on the task ahead. Together, they step into the light. Thank you, Master. And then he's gone. Chapter 12. Many, many years ago, a little boy, a child born of light and destined for the stars, dreamt of freedom. He dreamt of brandishing a sword of pure light and liberating all who were oppressed, all who were chained or collared or chipped. The boy saw himself becoming a Jedi Knight and freeing the slaves. The boy did not live long enough to see that dream become a reality. Against all expectations, their mission was approved. They were going to free the slaves. Through her tireless persistence, along with support from Chancellor Organa, Padme was able to pass a bill that ensured the established illegality of slavery in the Outer Rim and provided newly freed planets and individuals with what they needed to start anew. This bill extended to the clones, as well, formalizing their status as citizens of the Republic. With that in mind, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka had approached the fully unchipped 501st and 212th, giving each and every former soldier the choice to participate in their crusade or pursue their own ventures. Nearly the entirety of the 501st, along with much of the 212th, had decided to come along and aid in freeing the enslaved planets, whether that be through combat or relief efforts. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Rex came to an unspoken consensus regarding their first stop, the planet on which it all began. Tatooine. The day on which they arrived marks exactly one standard month since Anakin died. Obi-Wan steps out of the ship and looks out at the endless desert, at the burning suns in the sky. This is where it all began. This is where it will be put to rest. From there, it's a flurry of activity, negotiations, aggressive negotiations, mass chip removals, and everything else that comes with freeing the enslaved population of an entire planet. The speed at which they free the planet is near miraculous. Obi-Wan is convinced the Force had a metaphorical hand in such matters. All in all, everything is falling into place so nicely, the Force feels more content than it has in a long, long while. A part of Obi-Wan is waiting for the other shoe to drop. He still fears the deepest and most shadowed corners of himself, fears the possibility of the dark rising up within him to overtake the light. But he cannot remain afraid, he must embrace these parts of himself. After all, the brightest sun creates the darkest shadows. The two, light and dark, come hand in hand, for that is the definition of balance. A note of concern pulls him out of his own mind. Ahsoka is looking at him, her head tilted inquiringly. Ahsoka is an ever-present source of light and support, her tenacity and spirit comforting and reassuring. Whenever Obi-Wan is unsure, she senses it and reaches out through their bond, sending pulses of encouragement that help dispel his worries. He is endlessly grateful that she chose to remain in his life. I'm okay, Padawan. Don't worry. She flashes him a grin and continues onward. I have a question, the Togruta says tentatively. What is it, Ahsoka? So, was Anakin really the chosen one? Obi-Wan pauses as he considers the unexpected question. Does it really matter? He finally responds. Anakin's hypothetical destiny doesn't change the impact he had on our lives. Yeah. It would still be kinda nice to know, though. I know, Ahsoka. But I don't have all the answers. But though I wish I did is left unsaid. They stumble their way up a sand dune. Upon reaching the top, the landscape that stretches before them is barren except for a handful of moisture, evaporators and a domed little hut in the near distance. The desert is cold and dark in the sun's absence, but Obi-Wan can see the first signs of dawn. Are you sure I can't come with you? Ahsoka asks. I'm sorry, Ahsoka, I just... Don't worry about it, Master, she interrupts, the moniker said with only the slightest hesitation. I understand. Obi-Wan tears his gaze away from the scenery before him to look at his Padawan. Her expression is earnest and accepting. To Obi-Wan, that means everything, they are two souls, united by their own dissimilar journeys through grief. He sends a burst of gratitude to her through their bond, attempting to communicate that which he cannot express verbally, before taking a deep breath and beginning his trek. I think Anakin would be proud of you, Obi-Wan. The Jedi Master stops, and looks back at Ahsoka. Her blue eyes are wide and sparkle with something he can't quite define. He finds himself suddenly overcome with emotion. Thank you, Ahsoka, he replies, voice wavering. I think Anakin would be proud of you, too. Master and Padawan exchange nods. Obi-Wan watches her walk away, her Padawan braid her old silka beads had been melted down and reshaped into the faceted, oval-shaped ones that she now wears swinging with each step, before going in the opposite direction. Obi-Wan treks towards the homestead, a walk accompanied by the occasional stumble, much to his own embarrassment. He's starting to understand Anakin's vehement hatred towards sand. Nonetheless, it does not take him long to reach the homestead. The inhabitants, Beru Whiteson and Owen Lars, were very helpful in their quest to free Tatooine. Obi-Wan came to learn that they were actually related to Anakin by marriage, for Owen's father married Shmi. Though Anakin had only met them once, they were dismayed to hear of his passing. What he learned from them led to his current visit. He listens to the Force as it lights the way, stopping when it tells him to. Where he is standing does not look any more remarkable than the surrounding area, but upon kneeling on the ground and brushing away some of the grains, he knows this is the right place. He begins to dig, once again cursing the dry, constantly shifting sands for making his task all the more difficult. The Jedi then unclips a lightsaber that isn't his own, cradling it in his hands and bringing the hilt upward, the cold metal touching his forehead. The once piercing screams of the kyber crystal have become little more than a faint hum. Obi-Wan must conquer his greatest challenge, one far greater than killing Sith Lords, fighting in wars, or facing his own inner darkness saying goodbye. Delicately, oh so delicately, Obi-Wan's fingers uncurl from the hilt of Anakin's lightsaber, dropping it into the small hole he had dug in the sand. When Anakin died, Obi-Wan's world shattered. Everything seemed to just stop. However, he has come to realize that the story doesn't end. When someone important dies, the story continues, and that's the hardest part. So he has no other choice but to keep going along with it. He covers up Anakin's lightsaber and rises, looking once more at the small, uneven pile of sand that hides his brother's lightsaber situated directly adjacent to Shmi Skywalker's gravestone. Mother and son, united on a world made free in their name. Force, Anakin, Obi-Wan says, hoping the desert winds will carry his message far, far away where Anakin will hopefully hear them. There are so many things I never had the chance to tell you. Like how proud I am of you. And how honored I am to have been your master and your friend and your brother. And how much I love you. I wish you were here, freeing Tatooine. Actually, we never would have done this without you. You did it, Anakin, Obi-Wan murmurs. You can finally rest. And he stutters, choking on a sob. And tell your mother I say thank you. Obi-Wan still has days where his soul feels as if it is being torn in two, days where the growl of a speeder seems to steal his breath right out of his chest, days where Anakin's absence is so raw that he is paralyzed by the pain of it. He isn't fully healed, and probably never will be. The gaping hole that Anakin's death left in his heart will probably never go away. But he can keep living for his best friend and brother, keeping moving on and making the galaxy a place that Anakin would be proud to live in. That will have to be enough. Obi-Wan takes a steadying breath and turns around, looking out towards the horizon. He can make out their base camp, which consists of a cluster of tents and ships, where 501st and 212th assist and befriend the newly freed slaves. The twin suns, still low in the cloudless sky, illuminate their camp with early morning rays. The sky is stunning, the deep indigos of night, slowly giving way to the soft oranges, yellows, and light blues of a new day. Anakin's sparse remarks regarding Tatooine had always been dispassionate and scornful, descriptions of a harsh and unforgiving planet. He had no experience on Tatooine to refute such claims. Obi-Wan never realized a place he once thought merciless, a place that had seen such cruelty, could be so beautiful. Yet the vibrant scene before him, the way in which the Force seems to flow through him like a refreshing breeze, the joy and relief radiating from the clones, and the newly freed. And that feeling, the one he had thought was hope but far more concrete, the one that had begun in his chest and slowly expanded, growing and growing, until his entire being felt warm and full and ready to burst. Obi-Wan knows what it is. It's faith. It's faith in the galaxy, faith in those around him, faith in the Force, faith that things will be okay. It's faith in himself. He takes a deep breath and smiles, paying no mind to the tears that slide down his cheeks. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Master, Council Member, Teacher, Best Friend, Brother stands tall and radiant as he walks away and doesn't look back.